Good morning. I'm Andrew. I'm a regretful recovering addict. I really wasn't nervous about this until it was time to get dressed to come. I didn't really put a whole lot of thought into it. I've spoke before, and so you kind of have this kind of like cramming before a test. Like you get your books out, and you're like, well, this is kind of what I want to talk about. And so you formulate this thing. And so I know that from previous experience that everything that I brought with me to talk about in my head, I may or may not touch it. I do know that today, Narcotics Anonymous has given me a way to ease the pain of living through spiritual principles. And so for me, when I was approached about speaking, of course I said, yeah, because, who doesn't want to get the opportunity to come up here and share? I know some people are kind of like, whatever, but I do enjoy it. And I know for me, it gives me the opportunity to get out of my head, to share with everybody else what I've been experiencing, how I've been going through, a lot in life. And, I get the opportunity to see kind of like where I'm at, how I'm growing. And so when I was given the topic, well, it was the basics, not back to basics. But either way, one thing that I do know is that I heard newcomers share, I've heard old timers share, and everybody says, as long as you stay in the basics, you don't have to go back to the basics. But my experience has been, I personally have never stayed in the basics, and I've never seen another recovering addict, even with time, that stays in the basics, at all times. So we have this cycle, things that we go through, and it's like, what I went through was, I didn't have a job when I came to Narcotics Anonymous. All the relationships, the bridges were burnt. And so literally all I had was coming to meetings, and they said, get a sponsor, do 90 meetings in 90 days. If you don't know what a sponsor is, get with someone, get phone numbers. And so literally all I did for probably 9 months was I went to meetings, and at every meeting I asked for numbers, and we used to have these meeting sheets that we passed around, and men would put their numbers on it, and I was just thinking recently about some of the people, the predecessors that were here, like Tony C., Chris W., Tony D., and like I get emotional because even Laddie, Laddie was one of the first men that I ever met in Narcotics Anonymous in Oak Ridge, and he remembered my name. Like I left, I used, I came back, and he said, Andrew, where you been, man? I love you. It's good to see you. How you doing? And so it was just that simple, loving exchange, that being recognized, being accepted, being missed, and so that to me was kind of like that's the foundation of like what I'm trying to get to. But the basics, the fundamental things that you have to do, the symbol in our basic text is the first thing that you see, and it has 4 components: self, God, society, and service. And until recently I really didn't know like what exactly am I trying to put into these things. Because like I just had rotator cuff surgery, and I've had this extra time off, and I have a father-in-law that bakes sourdough. And so, he's like, well, I got this stuff, and I've had it before, and I was kind of interested in it. And so with this extra time, like, I've baked. That's what I've done. And so, but there's an approach. Like you have to learn about it. You have to practice it. There's recipes, and it's like you get any of these components off, and you just kind of like, well, I'm an addict, and so what I do is I go into it head first, and then I try to figure it out on the fly. They say don't get in a relationship your first year. That's what I did. I jumped headlong into the relationship, and so like I'm trying to go on the fly, and like with with my wife now, like we're both mending our foundation so that we can, we're stable enough to be, you know, on this foundation. And so my recovery experience is the same way, you know, headlong into, you know, service work, going to meetings, going to every convention, but not doing any step work, not doing any writing, really not developing a prayer life, you know. And so that's why it talks about going back to the basics. So then when the pain shows up and the consequence shows up and the chaos and the turmoil and the confusion, because I suffer from a disease, you know, this thinking disease, spiritual malady, self-centered, self-seeking, obsession, compulsion, like the physical, the mental, the spiritual, all this stuff doesn't go away. And the first sponsor I ever had said, you know, you take a drug-crazed maniac and you take away the drugs, and what you're left with is a crazed maniac. So, you know, angry, resentful, fearful, you know, the triangle of self-obsession. So that's what I'm trying to ease the pain of my default when I wake up every morning being fear, anger, and resentment, you know. So there's the opposite of that. What I'm trying to live in now is love, acceptance, and faith, you know. But you have to, there's building blocks of how you get to being able to recognize that I'm living in fear, or that I'm angry, I'm full of rage, you know, full of resentment, and, you know, I'm just a negative asshole all the fucking time at the slightest drop of a hat, you know. And I'm sabotaging myself, I'm sabotaging my relationships, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm alone and alienated and isolated. And, oh, why? You know, well, because I've been playing into the disease of addiction. I've been leaving it untreated, you know. And so the basics give me a way to treat this this fear, this anger, this resentment, you know. And I think that one of the biggest things that I learned through service work was responsibility, like caring about something greater than myself, caring about something greater than, you know, do I have what I want? How do I get what I want? You know, and in a way, kind of like I had the defect of self-centeredness, and, you know, and I got involved in service because I had that instant gratification, like that, you know, putting all this time and energy into a convention, and then it coming and everybody's like, oh my God, that was the most amazing convention ever. Had the best time, like the biggest spiritual high, you know. And so in a way, that's what we try to achieve through the dope. That's what I try to achieve through the dope, you know, is that high, that, you know, that connection, that, you know, positivity, you know. But I always ended up, you know, my dad used to say, what goes up must come down, you know. So when you get back to the basics, like even in recovery, without, you know, I mean, it's hard to do. Like, it took me 3 years to get through all 12 steps when I was new. And so where I'm at now is I got away from the basics, you know, and with 9.5 years clean, I used for 3 months, you know. But what led me up to that point was I stopped doing the basics. I stopped going to meetings, you know. I isolated myself. I didn't want to share the true reality of what was happening with my kids. This identity that I'd put into fighting for my kids in court and getting them back, and like having these fucking basically like some using addicts, and some, you know, some kids with like mental illness, that it was like living with a using addict, you know, just because they were raised without me in such a fucked up situation that they're essentially looking for, you know, any solution on the outside of themselves to fix what's going on the inside. So I see all this, and I'm like battling and seeking control and pouring money into lawyers and just doing all this stuff. And like, and it was just it never panned out. It never, it worked completely against me, blew up in my face. And instead of coming to my sponsor and saying, like, my daughter accused me of molesting her, so she didn't have to live with me. You know, my son pisses on himself, and I'm trying to get him into a specialist to see, like he wants to, like, be a baby. You know, like, that's how he seeks relief. You know, regression. You know, how the disease manifests in him. You know, going to therapists, fucking DCS coming every 3 fucking months with some kind of something new. You know, hiring a lawyer, being investigated, getting exonerated, like, my resentment building in my wife to the point where it's like we have to set boundaries, and, like, these fucking kids just can't come to my house anymore. You know, like, I'm not on speaking terms with my children. You know, happy Thanksgiving. I love you. I miss you. You know, so it's like I don't want, like, I can get up now and I can share about that because, like, but it's like all the shame and the guilt, you know, the embarrassment, the rejection, the dejection, you know, and, like, when I was 18, like, I got a statutory rape charge. So it's like it was easy for them to be like, well, the ex-wife could just be like, well, all you got to do is just say that, you know, he's physically, sexually, or emotionally abusing you. And then it's like immediate, like, well, you know, all right, cool. Well, he's got that history, so let's see what's going on, you know. So it's like, well, they could come back to my house now that the case was closed, but it's like, my wife has kids. They're like Disney, you know, soccer. Like, my kids are like fucking suicide boys and smoking weed and, you know, drinking Tito's, you know, like running around partying, like doing shit that I was doing as a teenager. You know, so they don't want to be with dad in recovery with structure and, like, tension. And I just want to go. So for them, they just wanted to be where they could do whatever the hell they wanted to do, which is where they're at now. So that's the life that they're living. So can I accept? Can I still love? Can I have faith that the God that I surrender my will and my life to, you know, that they got their journey? You know, one of the most basic things that I could learn is you can't deny another addict their pain. So my sponsor tells me all the time, he's like, you love the hell out of these sponsees. Can you love your wife? Can you love your kids? How much fucking acceptance do you have today for them? You know? And so, you know, so I have to go back to reading literature, you know, and it's really cool. So in a world service, you might have your emotions about them and being a corporation and the things that they do, but, you know, to me, they put out literature, and the literature is the most amazing stuff, you know. And so in the first step, it talks about we're never immune. And, you know, when all this shit happened, I didn't go, well, my sponsor would have took me back to it if I had called him. I might have heard it if I went to a meeting. You know, I might have read it if I had picked up the book, but it said we are never immune to having our lives become unmanageable even after years of recovery. If problems pile up and our resources for coping with them dwindled, it took me 3 fucking years to get high. That's a high tolerance for pain. You know, 3 years. So it's like when I talk to my sponsor now about what I'm doing, he's like, why are you standing still, bro? If you're standing still, you're going backwards. You know? So it says that if our problems pile up and our resources for coping with them dwindle, we may feel out of control and in too much pain to do anything constructive for ourselves. I can destruct all fucking day long. I got the energy, I got the time, I got the resources, I got the know-how to just fuck it up, no matter what, by any means necessary, you know. But when it comes to the shit that works, it's like addicts will just stop doing shit that works. You know, we will take the thing that feeds us and turn away. Like, well, that's boring as shit. You know, like spiritual growth, change, you know, responsibility, like, you know, building a life that's worth living, you know, all these promises, like, you know. And so, at least that's what I do anyways. So It says, we feel overwhelmed by life, and that feeling seems to make everything worse. Feeling seems to make everything worse. Seems to. When our lives seem to be falling apart, we reapply ourselves to the basics of the NA program. We stay in close, and it tells you what it is. We stay in close contact with our sponsor, work the steps, and go to meetings. I mean, that's pretty fucking basic. So I call somebody. I share vulnerably, you know, my kid accused me of molesting her. I didn't want to say that. You know, I want to fucking, like, I'm so detached from reality that I couldn't cry if I wanted to. You know, I could not go to him. Like, I couldn't even listen, you know, because in a way, thank God for COVID, because it made the Zoom platform and like 1 million recovering addicts in 100 different countries a reality to tune into. But like, I couldn't even get on there and listen to other people sharing their pain. I would just be angry. I was full of rage. I was like completely indifferent, intolerant, didn't give a shit, you know. And I knew what to do. I knew how to fix it. I was just unwilling. I didn't want to get honest. I didn't want to be open-minded to people saying like, well, you got to share about it. You got to go to therapy. You got to do this. You got to forgive. You know, you got to do all these things. Like, there's steps to take, you know. I just wanted to self-destruct. So we reapply ourselves to the basics of the NA program, stay in close contact with our sponsor, work the steps, go to meetings. We surrender again, knowing that victory lies in the admission of defeat. So, it's that one. You know, I think that, so now my experience is I don't ride on step work all the time. I do go to meetings a lot more than I used to. I do know that I can't use successfully. I had to use pain medicine after my surgery, and I took it as prescribed, and I didn't get high. I was fucking amazed. You know, 1 every 6 hours. My wife would have to force me to take it. Like, most of the time I didn't even want it. Like, I was like, I'm good. Well, you need to take it because once that shit wears off, like, you're going to be hurting. And really, like, I was good till, like, that first day. I was like, this is easy as shit. You know, and then the nerve block wore off, and we were at soccer practice. You know, and she didn't bring the medicine with her, you know, but she had it. And then at her work, she was being drug tested, and at the treatment center she works at, now they've got the shit in the safe, you know, because I have 13 and a half left. I know exactly how much. And some days I'm like, God, I wish that shit was in my pocket, you know, because I'm doing too much, because I'm not necessarily that, like, I went back to work and like I'm really used to doing everything for everybody else, and so now I have to ask for help, and this has kind of like been God's way of making me, for one thing, focus on the things that I have to focus on. And then when there are things that are outside of my ability, I have to ask for help, you know. And so it's taken me back to the basics of, you know, really looking at like fundamentals of what can I do? What am I really capable of? What do I need to be focusing on right now? And if there's something that I try to lean into that I can't do, that I need help with, I have to stop what I'm doing. I got to go find somebody. Hey, can you help me do this? You know, because before, like, even at work and like, you know, I work in a glass factory, and so I'm a supervisor. So my boss bitches at me all the time, like, you know, when there's an issue, instead of addressing it, effectively communicating, apparently that's a problem of mine, effectively communicating, you know, what the issue is, and that, you know, the guys need to address it and you hold them accountable. Like, you just put your shit on and you go take care of it yourself. Because that's what imagine that, an addict that just wants to, like, you know, bulldoze through and, you know, get it done and not have to ask for help. So that's part of the unhealthy, untrue belief systems that I've identified in my first step that make my life unmanageable and make my arm hurt when I do too much. And so, you know, So today, I don't ride on as much step work, but I periodically, when the pain is great enough, sit down and write. Uh, but I always read literature. I'm always talking to recovering addicts. I'm always calling my sponsor now. I used to go like months without talking to him, and now it's like I talk to him at least 2 or 3 times a week. You know, for some people, like when you're new, you got to have somebody that you can talk to on a daily basis. Some of my sponsees, you know, like some of them, they say, will you be my sponsor? And I'll say, yes, absolutely. You know, just call me. And then like 6 months later, hey, just wanted to check in with you, let you know everything's good, you know, all is well. I'd like to get started on this step work. I'm like, all right, well, anytime you know, whenever you're ready, buddy. You know, another 6 months goes by. Hey, just wanted to let you know I'm still working on this step work. Okay, well, you know, like that's one thing I used to, um, the way that I would sponsor is like I would have these high expectations, and if they weren't met, you know, well, you're gonna have to find somebody else to sponsor you. And what I found is that I created more harm doing that, you know, than just loving and accepting. And that leads me to another thing. I think it's in the basic text. Let's see here. Ta-da. Gradually, we replace our old habits with new ways of living. We become willing to change. We go to meetings regularly, get and use telephone numbers, read literature, and most importantly, we don't use. We learn to share with others. If we don't tell someone we're hurting, they will seldom see it. When we reach out for help, we can receive it. Seems to be what I'm talking about. Another tool for the newcomer is involvement with the fellowship. As we become involved, we learn to keep the program first and take it easy in other matters. We begin asking for help and trying out the recommendations of people at the meetings. It's beneficial to allow others in the group to help us. In time, we will be able to pass on what we have been given. We learn that service to others will get us out of ourselves. Our work can begin with simple actions: emptying ashtrays, making coffee, cleaning up, setting up for meetings, opening the doors, chairing a meeting, passing out literature. Doing these things help us feel a part of the fellowship. We have found it helpful to have a sponsor and to use the sponsor. Sponsorship is a two-way street. It both helps the newcomer and the sponsor. The sponsor's clean time and experience may well depend on the availabilities of sponsors in that locality. Sponsorship for newcomers is also a responsibility for the group. It is implied and informal in its approach, but it is the heart of the NA way of recovery from addiction, one addict helping another. And so it goes on to say, I'm not going to go through all that. This is probably what I needed to get into, where it says, for anyone who wants our way of life, we share experience, strength, and hope instead of preaching and judging. If sharing the experience of our pain helps just one person, it was worth the suffering. We strengthen our own recovery when we share it with others who ask for help. So I had to look at, once again, I'm looking at like, what's my part? Am I what's my motivation for sharing something with someone? And what is the, what's my intention? Sometimes I might have a self-serving intention. Sometimes I might be selfless, But at the end of the day, when it comes to service work, like whatever gets you there and whatever gets you involved, thank you. Yeah, I figured this. And so whatever gets you involved, if it's the judge making you come, getting paper signed, probation officer telling you that you need to be here, whatever gets you here, whether it's desperation, the need to change, like whatever your motivation is, just know that, or whether you're brand new or whether you have 20 years clean, been through multiple relapses or just picked up one white key tag, one thing that I found is that the solution is always in just coming to a meeting and sitting down and being reminded, because I have amnesia, spiritual amnesia. Like I forget on a daily basis, like what I'm supposed to be doing, the fact that I'm an addict, what works, and I have to be reminded. Thanks for letting me share.
let's give it up again for Andrew. Thanks for serving. We'll give the floor over to Dee.
I'm Dynamic. Ooh, the basics. I just need to share where I was at with the basics this morning. I thought I was supposed to speak tomorrow, and I got a call this morning. Greg said, you're supposed to speak this morning? I said, no, you said Saturday. He said, no, it's today. I said, I'll be there. I'm on my way. So I didn't really had time not to really just do my little meditation thing before I start. So if you would you please give me a few seconds so I can connect with the God of my understanding. Thank you. Again, I'm Dynamic. The basics. Let's talk about the basics. I know the basics for me is when I first got the detox, they told me the main thing is don't use. The next thing is get to a meeting. So when I got to the halfway house, that's where it came with get a sponsor, get a network. And I know when I got clean, and me being honest, I was trying to figure out how to do this thing and get away, how to, because I didn't believe that you could stay clean. I didn't believe, I just didn't believe it. It was just something me just didn't believe. And I used to hear Randy and them say, let us believe until you start to believe. Trust the process. Just keep coming back. That was one of the basic things. Keep coming back for me. And my crazy thinking was keep coming back and you're going to find the hookup. That was my basic. That was my thinking. I said, okay, I want what they have. I just got to find the right person. Because, see, I kept missing things when they were sharing things. They were saying, get the network. And see, my thinking of the network was to hook up just like I was when I was using. Find the right people to buy the dope from. Find the right place to get high at. Find the right person to show you how to, And they kept saying, the same energy you used then, use it now. My sick thinking was, okay, find the person to get hooked up with so I can find the person that's going to tell me how to do this thing. It took a minute for me to understand what was going on. But the main thing I remember, the basic thing was keep coming back. Keep coming to a meeting. They kept saying, keep coming back, you'll get it. That pop sound will come. I kept saying the pop sign. That's it. They was talking about steps. I was looking for a ladder. They said 4-step. I said, boy, as soon as I find the hookup, we going to go in that other room over there, and we going to fix that 4-step, and then we going to walk them steps. That was my thinking. I said, I'm going to keep coming back because they said if I keep coming back, it'll happen. I kept coming back because I wanted what was in the rooms, but see, I didn't know in the rooms there was recovery. My mind was first screwed up. I don't know about y'all's. When I got her, they said, Diane, no matter what, just don't use. See, my first sponsor, I didn't pick her. Tammy V picked me. They picked me. She said, I'm your sponsor. Who is you? I don't need one of those. I'm trying to find a hookup. She said, yeah, I know that part, and I am your hookup. No, you be talking that other stuff, and I don't understand all that. But she didn't stop, man. She didn't stop. She used to come to the halfway house to get me, take me to her house. We used to have little sponsor tree meetings. And see, that part right there had me too. She said sponsor tree. I was looking at sponsor tree. So we're going tree hunting. My mind was, but the basic thing was I kept coming back. I kept coming back. And they said, just don't use. I said, okay. If I don't use, I'm going to find the right hookup, and then we're going to learn how to use and do this thing the right way. That was my thinking, But I kept coming back, and through a period of time, those basic things is what kept me clean. It kept me coming back. Even now, I have to go back to my basics, go to a meeting. Just like Andrew said, go to a meeting, call my sponsor. And I used to call Tammy. I said, I get 10 minutes to call you 3 times a day, and I'm going to call you all 3 times. Because you said if I keep calling you, I'll get the hookup. That was my thinking. She said, yeah, you do that. That's what you do. You do that. She said, at least I know you staying connected. Yeah, I'm staying connected. When the fog started leaving my head and Randy was saying, come to the front and I'll dare you. And if you just try this thing and trust the process, it started getting better. Because I said, okay, they just not going to just show me how to do this thing. They said, hang with us. I said, that's my network. They said, hang with us after the meeting. Hang with us before the meeting. For a minute, my name was Diane. Diane, I ain't got no money. Because they said after the meeting, we going to Shoney's. I said, that was my network. Shoney, you know how we used to do? After the meeting, go to Shoney's. I ain't never have no money, which I didn't have no money because I didn't have no job. Go to the meeting, go to Shoney's. And sit at Shoney for hours. I kept saying, man, I'm so sick and tired of coming up in here because they just won't let me get the hookup. What's the hookup around here? Randy said, this is the hookup. He says, your life getting better? I said, yeah. I said, because now I'm getting ready to move into my house. I'm getting ready to get a job. He said, see, it's working. I said, what's working? I still wasn't really getting it. But I know things was getting better for me. He said, oh, you calling your sponsor? He said, yeah, you calling yours. Because he said, that's my sister. I said, that's your sister. So I kept hanging out with him. And see, at that time, my sponsor tree, it was like 30 of us. We was going on retreats that my sponsor and her sponsor and sponsor aunties and all that, our network, our sponsor tree was putting together for the weekend, go renting cabins for the weekend, and we have our own little miniature convention. It was like a convention because we had to do workshops and we danced and line dance and party and play cards and cry and laugh and all the good stuff, but we was clean. I enjoyed that part. Then they said, let's talk about the step work. The first step, do you surrender? I said, evidently I do because I'm still here. She said, no, do you know what surrender is? I had to look up what the surrender was. That was me, giving it my way, doing it my way. Be willing to do something different, asking for help. And that was my hardest thing, was asking for help around here. After I understood that, hey, in order for it to continue to get better for me, I got to ask for help. You know, because here it is, at that time I was 33 years old at a halfway house, and here it is, UT students was telling me what to do. I said, wait a minute, hold up. I'm almost old enough to be her mama. She gonna tell me what to do. We're not finna do this. See, I had to ask for help how to do the basic things as learn how to be a better parent. Because, see, they told me, Diane, you was not a good mother. I said, yeah, I would. I said, no, you wasn't. And when they broke it down and showed me that I wasn't and stuff, asking for help how to do something different, and that was being real, coming to a meeting and sharing, you know, my experience, what was going on with me and what I was feeling, you know, and knowing that these women in the rooms was going through some of the similar things and not the same thing that I was going through was powerful. Knowing I was not alone, you know, that part right there, that was a whole lot of healing for me. It's learning how to be a good mother. They said, Diane, you got to do the basic things: cook, clean, wash clothes, wake them up in the morning to go to school. I said, wait a minute, that's a lot of stuff. See, I did it before I got into my addiction, but I can't remember how I done it because I had lost the ability to do it. And I had to ask them how to cook again. Because I was sending the fire department to my apartment. They was coming at least twice a month. You know, I blamed it on the stove. They said, no, Diane, the basics. You got to go to class. I had to go get classes to learn how to cook. I can cook now. I can cook now. Don't try me because I can cook. Just like yesterday, I can cook. When I learned the skills of cooking again, I was cooking too much. The first Thanksgiving dinner I cooked at Great Star, so I cooked enough I could have fed the whole community. But I can cook now. Me and my dog, we threw down yesterday, and we had to give ourselves a high five. And the process of the basic things on how to mend relationships, I had to go through that because today, to hear my daughter say, Mama, we did that, and we had a beautiful day. She didn't hold no grudges. She didn't say, Mama, I'm still mad at you. She said, Mama, she said, we got to do this more. And that was through a healing process because the basic text, how it works and why, gave me the tools that I need to learn how to get to that point to where, hey, I let go, I let God, and we doing this. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm emotional. I can be a big crybaby sometimes, and that's okay. That's me keeping it in the basics. Because today I had to go to the basic tools to learn how to feel again because I had covered up my feelings for so long. It took a minute for me to learn how to feel my feelings. Ask me, do I know how to identify all of them? No, I do not. It's still feelings I can't identify because I want to say sometimes when I feel something that it's a bad feeling, it may not be a bad feeling. It might be a new good feeling I never felt before. I just can't recognize it. So what I do, go back to my basics and go through the step work and try to find out what it is that I'm feeling. I think I said that right. Those basic tools for me is going to a meeting, having a sponsor, using that sponsor. Because, at one point I wasn't using my sponsor, but I would tell everybody I had a sponsor. They said, you got a sponsor? Yeah, I got a sponsor. And she sure came up to me. She said, why do you keep telling everybody you my sponsor? You don't even call me. I said, I'm just doing what they said do. They said get a sponsor. She said, but you don't have one. You naming me, but you don't utilize the tool. Today I call my sponsor. I don't call her every day because she keep getting making me get butt naked honest about some stuff. So I getting my stuff and don't want to call her, but I call her. I do the step work. I get honest with her. I work with her. And that was a basic tool that I have to continue to keep going back to on a daily basis. Whether I talk to her or not, I still use that tool. The basic text, it's in there. It's everything that I need on how to stay clean today. You know, and I didn't bring my book with me. I didn't bring my literature. And I usually have. And I don't know. I can't remember nothing right now. I don't know, but I'm nervous. I can't remember none of it. I can't remember none of my stuff that I got highlighted, and I usually can quote when I'm by myself. But the literature is what really saves me. Because a lot of times I'm by myself, and it's just me and God, and it's like God telling me, "You got the tools right there. Use them." And because now the newcomer, you say basic text, it's like they want to run from it. I'm not with that instant formula microwave recovery today. I'm ready. I'd rather go through the process and the time to get it because it lasts longer. It sticks to me. It sticks to my spirit because I have learned that the basis is for me is it's a spiritual program, not a religious program, but it's spiritual levels around here. Um, yeah, but I keep mine real bad. I'm back in my basics right now because I know I have a change coming in my life because I've just received my associate's degree and I'm working on my bachelor's degree, and I have a desire to help other women with children when I complete. I have worked in recovery, but I continue to volunteer and stuff in recovery. But it's like I have a stronger desire to give back to the community more by building something that has been taken away from us because there's too many women suffering around here and they're dying, because they don't have the basic tools that they need to stay clean or to feel safe, you know. But that's what's going on with me now, and I have to stay in my basics and know that it's a process. It ain't gonna happen fast. I have to be patient. I had to learn what patience was. I had to believe in myself, and if some days I don't believe in me, that I have to have the fellowship to believe until I'm able to believe in myself. I have a network that's strong enough to say, hey, we know when you're not you. We know when you're ready to run, and we're still here. And what is it that we need to do to help you? And those are some basic tools. Because some days I don't have it that I need the strength from you all. There's some days I let my sponge run dry. And some days I just have to say, okay, I can't do it for me today. Can you help me? But there's some days I need to go back to my basic tools and ask for the help that I need just to get through it. If you're new in this thing of recovery, man, trust the process. Do the basics. Just keep showing up. The main thing, don't use. Show up. It'll happen. You don't understand? Keep coming back. Do a process. Do acceptance. Do a surrender. And trust, you will. I mean, I'm about lost for words. But I know the basics, they work for me. I can't live my life without them. It's a way of keeping it simple. I used to always say when I first got clean, keep it simple, stupid, because at that time, that's how I felt, real stupid, because I didn't understand, and I knew my head was all crazy, and the only thing I know was to keep it simple. That was my kiss to myself every day. Keep it simple, stupid. It only gets better one day at a time, and that's what I used to say. In the mornings, sometimes I had to go back to my basics as far as praying, and that is put my house shoes way up under my bed. I still do that, to where I have to get down so I be on my knees, because I can't get up like I used to now. And it take a minute, so while I'm down, I'm like, God, my knees is killing me. I might as well go ahead and say my prayer. So it makes me get back in line to the basics of praying first thing in the morning, meditating, because see, when I get through with them prayer and I got that time, and when I'm debating, okay, how am I going to do this to get back up? Is the mattress going to stay still long enough for me to get back up? That's my meditation process. So, it's a way, it's a way that things happen to where it reminds me to go back to my basics. Um, I love my recovery life today. I love who I am today. And I have to tell I got the affirmation with keeping it basic, with telling myself that I love myself. Take a sticky note, put it on the mirror. I love me today, and I might not feel it. Or I tell myself I'm going to achieve this today, or I'm going to do just like I told myself I got this tomorrow. It came today. You know what I mean? So if you're new, man, trust the basics. Stay clean. Go to meetings. Get a sponsor. Read the literature. And just show up. Get a connection around here. It works. I don't ran out of words right now. So, but I will say this. I have to ask myself sometime, how am I today? And I tell myself, I'm happy, joyous, and free. And I usually do that when I speak. I'm happy, joyous, and free. It's cold, y'all. It's cold in here. But you know what? I appreciate you all, because this is the basic truth, because y'all hear the 12-step me today. I'm Diane, I'm addict. I'm still glad to be here. That's it.
All right, let's give her another round of applause here, please.